Welcome to another episode of Alpha Intuition Podcast, where we're going to help you guys crack that crazy girl code. I'm your host, Keisha Blair, and I have my co-host, mind wellness coach, Essence Yarbrough. Essence, how are you, girl?
I am good. I'm good. It's good to be back. Get this done. Come on and get this word out to folks. Help these men crack this crazy girl code because we
Oh,
be out here a
that's
little crazy sometimes. They need to know what to
mm,
do.
that's right. So today we have a very, very, very interesting topic. Today we're going to be talking about co-parenting with the crazy girl. And I know you've heard that term where, we always say when mama's happy, everybody is happy, but is it really though?
Yeah.
So we're going to get right into
Mm.
it and just talk about that. So our the topic of discussion here is basically, I just want to just talk about, as far as co-parenting. Have you ever had faced any challenges as far as co-parenting? Not saying that you're a crazy girl or nothing, but sometimes you may have been called one, and guys may have called us this. But just from our perspective, just kind of talk about just some of the things that you had to face as far as co-parenting.
Well, I will actually just start with the time I was called crazy. I was
Oh,
called crazy. Yeah, I did flip out. It was around the
oh,
time it was brand new, the separation. This is when we separated and we had moved into different, domiciles. And I was upset because he would say that he was going to do one thing, but he would do another, right? I just didn't know what was
mm,
going on in his life, right? I still had a lot of, resentment, a little frustration still. It was a brand new breakup. And so I really was still counting on him to act like the husband as far as being
mm,
responsible and all of that and considering my feelings and that was a mistake. At the end of
mm,
the day, I just flipped out because I was like, I'm just pissed at you. You're not da 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 da. And I just grilled him and I just screamed at the top of my lungs at him.
mm,
That was the first time that happened and the only time that happened because I did not like how I came across. I didn't like the fact that I'm sure my kids heard it in the back. I did not
yeah.
like the fact that it would not draw our co-parenting relationship closer. And so I knew that I could not do that. That was not something
Mm,
that was going to get the results that I needed. And if anything was going to keep him further away, right? And I didn't
yeah.
want that for the kids. I wanted their kids to be around their dad. Okay. I didn't like some of his ways or a lot of his ways at that time, but it didn't matter because I wanted my children to have a good relationship with him. So he did. He called me crazy. He looked at me like, because he had never seen that come out of me before. So he looked at me like, he was like, you effing crazy. I said effing, I didn't say the word, but that's what he was like, you crazy.
Oh my goodness. So well
So
look,
I hope
that's
we
gonna
don't get
take us
bleeped
right
out.
into
But that
no.
right there, that was it. That was
All
it for
right, well
me.
that's
And I
gonna take us
learned.
right into that first topic of just talking about just how to survive that storm and weathering the emotional hurricane. Because sometimes we have all these emotions that go through us as women when we're dealing with men, and then they have to deal with it on the other end, right? So, we just want to just kind of talk about strategies for just staying sane and keeping our cool when we're in co-parenting situations, because just as you mentioned, I'm sure in his mind, he's probably thinking, what is wrong with this woman? Like, why is she acting like this?
Yep.
And of course, on your side, you're probably thinking, like, you know what? I feel validated in this moment because I'm feeling how I'm feeling. And I feel like what I'm saying is actually something that needs to be spoken. So, yeah, I
Yep.
can truly 100% understand that.
So when it comes to navigating emotional turbulence, I got to ask you, Keisha, like, what are some instances, like, how do you think guys probably navigate emotional turbulence themselves when they have their own emotions to deal with, right? And then they're dealing with this woman's emotions. What do you like? What's your experience with that? Like, as far as what you've heard guys say, you know what I mean? Because you're good at that.
well, Well, look, but the first thing that came to my mind is they ain't gonna say nothing. They just gonna like us. Even sometimes they might express it depending on how upset they've gotten and say, "Yeah, you crazy." Most time they just gonna stop. They're gonna walk away. Most men are not
Mm,
going to want to get it to escalate because they don't want to push themselves beyond the point of no return, especially if the children are around. Most guys are just they're just gonna stop and just walk away and not even want to deal with those emotions. But of course, when that's kind of you know, of course, I'm not a psychologist. I don't know if that's the best way to handle it, but any way to de-escalate a situation is always, I think, the best way. So if for men, if walking away is the best way for you to de-escalate it, so therefore you don't have those emotions that come up inside of you to where you think it's going to intensify whatever is going on, then I would say, yeah, at that moment. But sometimes you got women, we'll sit there and we'll try to walk up behind them and try to chase and say, don't walk away from me. Don't walk. If a man walks away, you need to let him walk away because trust me, he knows himself much better than you do. And if he's walking away, it's for a reason. It could not always have to be because he's trying to be disrespectful or trying to ignore you. It may be because he's trying to regulate his own emotions, so therefore he doesn't have a um a volcanic moment.
I agree with that. I think men kind of are at a crossroads. They come to a crossroads of either I'm
Mm-hmm.
about to go in with you and we about to have this back and forth, or I just need to shut down and like not spur it on. And I think that is a wise tactic. I wouldn't call it a tactic, but I do think that it's wise that or like intentional that men do that, but or like consciously that they just do. They back away because you have some men they will engage, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's just it's a pointless whirlwind at that point. And what can happen instead is that before a man even when he enters into the co-parenting space, you're having conversations before you even engage with the other parent. And that conversation is already choosing who am I about to be in these co-parenting discussions. Before you even engage that woman, am I going to be a person who has a gentle word that turns away wrath, like the scripture says in Proverbs? I think it's like Proverbs 15. I had it scattered down somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I love that verse because it talks about how a gentle word turns away wrath, but then you have a sharp tongue that actually stirs anger. And you don't want to be the one that's helping to stir the anger. What did Michelle say? When they go low, you go high. Like that is a real thing, and Michelle is very successful because she has that ability, right? Like people have
Yeah.
that ability to go high when other people are going low. So that's one of the things. So just remembering that, do you want to go into that discussion as a co-parent, as a foolish person or as a wise person? There's a verse that actually talks about what does it say? It says actually it's that same verse. The tongue of the wise use knowledge rightly, but the mouth of fools pours forth foolishness. And so going into the conversation with a wise mindset, just with the decision to say,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be wise about this. I know who this person is. You want to consider who is this woman that I have been dealing with. Then you want to say, does this person have a side that's reasonable? How does she respond when I compliment her? How does she respond if I send a little bit of anger her way, or how is it if I'm disrespectful? So I think at that point, you by the time you're even hitting the door with that co-parent, you want to know exactly what it is that you're going to be and what you're going to say,
Yeah.
and
So
have a
you just
plan.
maybe you made me think of just a portion of Proverbs 31 where it talks about a woman builds her house up with her hands and tears it down with her own
Right,
words. So sometimes with women,
right,
we have to be aware of the things that we're saying to our men because, just because you have a man who does not react to you emotionally, it doesn't mean that you should still do things to provoke him. Especially
right.
when you have children that are involved now. I can't always say that I've
Hmm.
always been the best person to
Hmm.
to the men that I've dated or to my children's fathers. But one thing I can say is that I never tried to argue with them in front of and I've tried to not argue with my children's fathers in front of them. I just don't think that's good for children
Right.
to see that. So
It's not
I'll
your
be the
ears.
person that
Yep.
tries to yeah I'll be the person that tries to walk away or just like we're not going to have this conversation, or if I address it, it's in a one-on-one situation to where the children are not
All right.
around. So,
Okay.
but even as far as men, it's like, you guys gotta just think about it's okay to express yourself, but you also have to think about how you express yourself to the co-parent, to this woman that you used to love or used to be with, and now you're no longer together. So sometimes emotions can get a little high. But you have to just think about the bigger picture, which is your child, and how to just make sure that it's okay to listen to see what they have to say. You don't always have to agree, but
Right.
on both sides, you have to make sure that you come to a happy medium for something that's going to be beneficial for the child.
I agree. Yes. Being flexible even if she's not flexible, but being flexible, being understanding again, being wise about who dealing, understanding who this person is. You already know who they are. I also wanted to mention, like, sometimes no matter what a man does, oh yeah, so this is good right here. Go ahead and
Yeah, I
introduce
was
this one
trying to,
before I say this.
I was trying to sneak it in while you were talking. I heard you going there, but yeah. So this
No,
next
this
topic
is
is just us
good.
talking
Yes.
about, yeah, loss in translation. It's like, you're trying to decode that crazy girl communication. When we say things that we expect you to already know, it's like, you're supposed to already know this stuff in our minds, and in the men's mind, y'all think like, why I don't even know what she's talking about. So yeah. So what were
Yep.
you gonna say?
I was gonna say that oftentimes a man will be on the present conversation in the moment on what the issue is, but the woman is stirring up wrath against you or resentment because she's still on the pain of the
Mm,
breakup or the resentment
yeah,
of something else. So she is still bringing everything from the past into the current moment when all you're focused on is the current moment at hand.
yeah,
Keep that in mind and be patient. Because the other thing is that if you have fussed with her on a regular in the past, she will think that that's the program you're still on. That
yeah.
would be the programming. So being aware, letting her know, kind of helping to retrain her brain. One of the things you can do, and when I say retrain her brain, you know how they say you teach people how to treat you,
How to
right?
treat you?
You teach people how to treat you. So, like you said, being quiet is good, but I have to say, sometimes it's good to go back and tap on the art that you have with somebody. Tap on the issue of the pain that you know that you probably caused. Not the pain that you did not cause, right? But if it's stuff that you just was like, that was old, that was old, that was old, well, she's bringing it in and keeping it new. She's keeping it fresh. So instead, take a moment to say, you know what, as a man, I
Mm.
did this to you, and I know that I did this to you, and I know that that hurt you. And I just need to take the moment to let you know that I really apologize. Let's, let's take a moment, and just
Well, that's
let's
holding
deal
themselves
with that real
accountable.
fast.
That's accountability. That's
It
accountability.
is. It's the accountability. And so then what that will do with the woman, it creates a healing. It creates a level
Hmm.
of healing. And from that, then you're able to say, okay, now let's start with the plan. This is a plan. I intend to fully be here. How do you need me to be here? We can't be together, but how can we co-parent?
Look,
So yeah.
you you remind me of a situation I saw. I don't know, one of those judge shows, right? And this woman would not let her father, the child's father, see his daughter, and he was going to court trying to get all these things, and she was just bringing up, and it wasn't even about the visitation rights. It was about I think it was about money that she was owed, and he was just saying, I just want to just see my daughter. And the judge was like, look, you have to get over this hurt, have to get over this pain, because clearly this man has moved on, and you have to allow him to see his child. And she said, but how am I going to get him back for all the things that he did to me? So in that moment, it wasn't even about the child, it was about revenge. And sometimes,
Right.
we have to, as women, we have to learn how to let go. We have to know that once the
Right.
relationship is over, we chose to have that child, right? It's
Yes.
so
Yes.
it's this child has a father. If the father wants to be active, it's not right for us to try to keep the child away from the father. And if he wants to be active in that child's life, especially in today's day and time, we definitely need to make sure that we allow him that opportunity. And whatever pain we
Right.
have inside, we got to learn to get past it. We have to start doing the work on ourselves to make sure we grow past that point, so that it won't create that generational curse for our children going down the line.
Yes. One of the things, I'm not even sure. You stop me if I'm about to bring up something else, but a resolve, right?
Hmm.
A resolve. Because there are a lot of men who deal with the fact that the women are keeping the children from them or turning them against the father. And when that is happening, men are like, what do I do in this case? She's teaching my daughter that I'm just a cash cow, or she's teaching my daughter that, I don't really care for her. I've heard all kinds of things. What
Yeah.
I would say to that, one of the things I recommend, this is one of those issues where you have to focus on the long run, right? If you can't settle it in the court, you can't settle it in person together. One of the things that you could begin to do, even through that process of trying to figure it out, is beginning to write letters to your child.
That's a great
One
idea. I
day,
like that.
one day, that child will become an adult. One day, you will have better access, easier
Hmm.
access to that child. Or if you even have a moment and you slip letters to your child, slip love letters to
Mm,
your child yourself. Stack them up if you
mm.
can't see your child. Don't, if you think that the mother probably won't give them to the child, don't send them. Or if you do send them, make a copy before you send it. So, and
Well,
I know that
look.
might seem like a lot, but it will work in the long run.
Well, I'm going to say this that, it just made me think about social media. A good thing about today is that we have social media. So most of the time you can probably connect with your child on social media and try to,
Yes,
it depends on their age, of course, and how old they are. But sometimes, yeah, you do have those women that try to keep the children away from the fathers by any
yes,
means necessary because of how it hurt them. They're not even thinking about the long term on how it's going to affect that
yes,
child down the line, whether it's a
yes,
boy or a girl, and then they become teenagers and you have a young woman and then you have a young man, and then they go into
yes,
adulthood, you have a man and a woman. They have that broken relationship with their father, and and it affects them. I don't care what anybody says, it affects them heavily. And co-parenting, it has to happen on both sides. It can't just be up to one person. So that's why I say,
right,
if men, if you're dealing with a woman that doesn't want you to see your child, they're using your child as a pawn, you got to start working on a way to try to build that relationship up with that mother. Hate to put it all on them, because it is a two-way street,
right.
but it has to start
Hmm.
somewhere because going back to the topic of the show, when mama's happy, everybody's happy. If the mother is unhappy, the child's not going to be happy because she's not going to be the mother that she needs to be to that child when she's unhappy inside. And whatever that reason is, however you repair that relationship, whether you need to apologize for things you know that you've done wrong, and not even focusing on what she did wrong, but just focus on what you've done wrong. And eventually, you sharing what you've done, it will hopefully eventually cause her to hold herself accountable and apologize for the things that she's done wrong to you.
Yes. And another, because it's very easy to get defensive through that
Yeah.
whole process. And I will say this to men, that sometimes your best defense is no defense. The
Hmm.
minute you begin to bring your defenses down, that energy might just spread to her and she will bring hers down. Humility is golden. And I don't mean humility as in letting her run all over you. Humility in the sense of being able to just be calm, collected, and just not. You were talking about something before, Keisha, that was so powerful, where you were just, somebody was talking to you, and you were just like, um, "Yeah, if you call me crazy, I'm crazy. You can say it. Okay, yeah, I'll do that." And all, and it gave no fuel. It gave
I'm not gonna
no
argue.
fuel. That was it. I'm not gonna argue. I'm not gonna
But
argue. I respect you.
how
You can say it instead. I respect you. Hmm.
now I have to say 20 years ago, oh, it'd have been on. I'm not gonna lie. When I was back in my 30s or my 20s, like, when I first had my
I
children
know.
and somebody said those things to me, oh, it was like all out war. And of course, never in front of my children, but if it came to that, I mean, it was just like, yeah, I'm gonna say something crazy back to you. I'm gonna try to attack you like you attacked me. Well, now me being 50 years old, it's like, for what? Why am I gonna stress myself out for something I know that's not true? If that's the way you feel, it's not up to me to change the way you feel about me. If my character and my actions don't exude how I want you to feel, then that just means that you're not the right person for me. So I'm not going to argue. If
Right,
that's the way you feel, okay, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
right, right. And that, not being worried about what people are projecting onto you is everything. It's just like in the Four Agreements, that book, The Four Agreements, don't
Hmm.
be easily offended, basically. Don't take offense. Taking offense is, it does not help you to solve anything. That person is just projecting their own either fears, insecurities, worries, angers, resentment, whatever it is. I probably said resentment like 50 times already, but
That's
it's a
okay.
real thing.
Yeah.
And it gets in the midst of these co-parenting discussions that you try to have in order to co-parent successfully, and it just, but no defense
So
is sometimes your best defense.
I'm gonna tell you this, and sometimes dealing with resentment, it can cause that roller coaster of emotions inside of us as women, right? To where we'll be nice one day, and then we'll be, crazy girl the next. So the guy is juggling this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type personality. It's like I don't even know who I'm about to talk to when I go see this person or when I call this person. So they're walking on eggshells, or they're trying to tread lightly, and they have no idea that this woman is basically just going through resentment and pain on the inside and trying to figure out, how to mitigate what she has going on inside of her.
Yes, yes. I think when people can get past that point, because if you notice, people will talk about how rocky it was in the beginning, right? How rocky it
Mm,
was. Oh, we had some hard times in the beginning. But then you're like, man, but y'all co-parent so well now. Oh, it was rough. I had one of those. It was kind of rough in the beginning. We had to find our footing. We had to grow accustomed to not living in each other's lives on a day to day and not
yeah.
expecting each other to show up on the day to day. And so when you once you get past that and your brain adapts to that, then you're like in a space where you're like, I don't what helped me was not counting on him at all.
Mm,
But when you have these expectations of her to say, oh, she's just going to be this way when we co-parent. She's just going to go with go with the flow. Or if you have the worst expectations, just try to have no expectation. Just try to see her as human, as the mother of your child, and just understand that her communication style, she hasn't settled into a workable one yet, right? So you're just going to have to be
mm.
patient in the meantime. As a man, you're still a leader. You're still the lead of that relationship. You're still that alpha in that relationship. You do have the power to set a tone.
Well, I'm going to say this: having expectations, they have to be realistic. But even sometimes when they're realistic,
Yeah.
you can still get disappointed. So, like you said, don't have any
Yep.
expectations. Just take that person for who they are, and
Hmm.
eventually who they are. Your child is going to find out who that person is. Whether it's the father living, the child living with the mother, because we have some single fathers out here who take care of their children, and they have the absent mothers, who
Hmm.
who do those same things, right? So you just have to just
Hmm.
make sure that you take care of you, that you focus on you, and you don't expect anything from the other person. And if they show up, they show up, and if they don't, they don't. Ultimately, you just want to make sure that you take care of your child. Um, and
Yes.
then, one thing
Yes.
I just want to talk about just for the male listeners, like, you guys need to focus on your own mental and your emotional health. You got to make sure that you take care of yourself. And sometimes, you got to set boundaries and make sure that if a person shows up trying to attack you, you have to make sure that you're very clear about what you're going to accept and what you're not going to accept. And sometimes the best thing to do is just to walk away. So I'm going to go into our, because I mentioned this, I'm going to go into our next topic, and this is us talking about self-care for dads, and just maintaining that inner peace when we have those chaotic moments. Like I said, I'm not even gonna say I'm an angel. I'm not by far. I've created probably more chaos than I've been a part of. So, just not really knowing myself or trying to do certain things. Because the relationship probably didn't work out, or like, I didn't get what I wanted. But ultimately I had to, as that's just growth, right? And me understanding those moments and me growing now that, I have to say that with my children, each one of them, they have a different father. I have great relationships with all of them, and they know each other, um, and we don't have those issues, and the ones that are married, I know their wives, and we don't tolerate that toxic environment. We don't have those toxic conversations. We think about,
Right.
what's the best thing to do for the child. So for self care, I'm going to say, man, you guys got to take those moments to de stress. Make sure you take care of yourself. Make sure you do things for yourself. Like, even if you go exercise, you go get a massage, you go hang out with your friends, you got to do something just to relieve that stress. So when you do have those moments that are escalated, you are the person who's trying to de escalate and not to make it escalate even more than it already has. So you have to worry about those, just
Yes.
those things to just cope with that when the stressors come about with the co-parent.
Yes, and not necessarily leaning to because a man losing his or not having access with his children, a man not being able to connect, that can take a man into depression. And I
Yeah,
don't think that's discussed enough. Men get depressed over not being with their
yeah,
children,
yeah.
not having access to them the way that they want. So sometimes They'll lean to the alcohol more. They'll lean to drinking or porn or things like that more. You want to just you don't want to get into that ritual because you again you want to maintain a healthy balance to be always readily available for your child, right? But then at the other end of it, it's also a way of maintaining your inner peace amidst chaos
Mm,
is making sure that you are not bringing or sparking the chaos yourself. You know,
mm,
Keisha mentioned earlier the self accountability. What things am I possibly contributing that I'm not, maybe not being, maybe you're not being fully dedicated to, or like my ex, just not showing up. He said, "Hey, I'm gonna show up here, or I'm gonna call at this time," and then it just wouldn't happen. Maybe you have a very busy life, and you don't take it as anything that's a big deal because maybe you were like that during the relationship. But now, when it's just you, the relationship between you and your children, you got to make sure that every moment that you can show up and you actually follow that deadline, right? You get there at that time, you call at that time, or if you cannot, that you shoot a quick message. Hey, I'm thinking about you, can't make it, can't do this, want to reschedule for this day. Something like
well,
that
look.
just helps to ease, and keeps
Well,
peace because
well,
you can be
well,
honorable
look.
about it.
Look, I'm just going to say this, that that's not always men, because my father raised me, right? So I have those moments with my mother, to where you have women out
Hmm.
here who do the exact same thing. So it's just people,
Oh,
and
yeah,
trying to make sure that
that's a people thing.
you just have to
Hmm.
make sure that you're a person of your word and hold yourself accountable. But you mentioned something where you said that men get depressed and certain things happen when they're not
They
around their
do.
children. Well, guess what? The child gets depressed too. So when you have,
Yes.
a woman who's using the child as a pawn to say no, you can't see him
Hmm.
because the person hadn't given them the money they wanted or didn't do whatever the case may be, can't use your child as a pawn because you're not even thinking about the mental state of that child. Not only it's affecting the man, but it's also affecting the child in the same way. And that's not fair to either one
Right.
of them because this person is because you're not getting what you want. So now you're going to use whatever you can at your disposal to hurt this other parent. That's not cool at all.
Hmm. And if you are in a position as a co parenting unit to do therapy, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Some
Mm,
people might actually be willing to do that. Some
yeah.
guys are able to do that or willing, and some women are willing to do that, where the others aren't. Takes two to tango. If you can establish that with a family counselor, I would go that route. I would try that, especially if you're believers. Go ahead and try that route. Do some kind of counseling, you know what I mean? If you can. Or just try to say, hey, can we have a meeting and let's talk it out? Things
Yeah.
like that can be very
I'm not
helpful.
saying
I don't know
I'm not
how
even gonna lie. I'm not.
realistic or
Oh,
common.
I'm just saying I'm not going to no. I will probably go with my child, but I'm not going with the parent. I'm just that's just me. I mean, I think it's a great idea, but realistically, I know I'm not going to do it, so I'm not going to suggest nobody else to do something I'm not going to do myself. So,
But that's something good
but it is a
there.
good
No, no, no.
idea. It's a
No,
good
but it's
idea.
good what you just said. No, but it's good what you just said. Like you and the child. I did that.
Yeah,
I didn't have counseling with my ex husband. I did counseling. It was me, and I took my kids. I took
yeah.
my kids to a counselor to help them through their grief because I knew, and this is just some signs of children grieving, they start to act out. They cry. They might have more meltdowns, things
Hmm.
like that. They buck up against you a little bit more. They outright just say things that are rude to you or out of anger, right? So the same way that the mother might speak out and strike out verbally, children will do the same thing. If you notice
Yeah.
those things, think about taking your child to a therapist. I'm gonna tell you, after that there they had, like, I think it was 3 to 6 months, it was between that amount of time. I'm gonna tell you, my kids turned out
Hmm.
completely different. Total turnaround. We had a Christian therapist. When I tell you, I'm talking a 180. My children were like so relieved, felt so good, and everything was fine again. Like, and I hate to say everything was fine because they didn't have their father in the house still. However, they had a peace within them and they were calm, and then they were just able to move on. And now they have great, excellent relationships with their father,
Well, so like I said before, two people being in the house doesn't always create the best type of environment, especially when you have the parents
right?
that are toxic. That's not always the best environment for a child to be in. So,
Mm-hmm.
even so,
Yep,
when you
I
talk
know.
about counseling, now I've been to counseling before. You mentioned it was a Christian counselor. I didn't even really look at that aspect. I just knew it was someone who was who was a licensed psychologist that I spoke to. And, you know, it's just sometimes it's just good to just get it out and just talk to someone. And it's somebody who's just non biased, that is not your friend, it's not the other person's friend, it's just somebody that doesn't really know either one of you, who's going to just have a listening ear and just give you a non biased opinion on the situation. So I think that's one of the best things to be in. But I want to go to our next topic here where we talk about creating boundaries, right? And just where to draw the line with when you have a crazy girl co-parent. You know, once again, you got to learn how to, first of all, set boundaries. You have to learn how to set realistic expectations and just know that you have to set healthy boundaries and just understand that sometimes communication is usually always the best thing to assert into any situation. Make sure that you listen as much as you want to be heard.
That was my next thing. I was just about to say that. About to say, listen, listen to her words because
Hmm.
sometimes listening to the words will give you the next cue. If
Yeah.
she is like escalating, because she could be yelling, but maybe she's not yelling to escalate to the point of a physical fight. Maybe she's escalating because she's really saying, I'm I'm not willing to talk anymore about this. And you just stop the conversation, right? She could be yelling to say, I can't take any more of this in this moment. That's drawing the line, right? You draw the line right there. Can't go no further, right? So, where would you say a man should draw the line at?
Hmm. I was just sitting there thinking, first of all, you know, like I've mentioned this before, women will want to talk and talk, and we'll try to get this guy to share and to talk. And most guys, they're going to show you how they feel with their actions. They may not say everything.
Hmm.
We are the ones who are going to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And they'll sit there and be zoning out half the time we're talking because at that point it's just, you know, we sound like Charlie Brown teacher, right? They don't even want to hear what we have to
Wah,
say.
wah, wah,
But
wah,
also,
wah.
yeah, but and ultimately, when it comes to the child, I believe we just need to look at their actions and let them know, okay, this is how you're not showing up for me. This is how you're not showing up for your child. If you could do X, Y, and Z, this will really help out. So, from the male standpoint, if you have a woman who basically is doing the same thing, who's not showing up or who's being assertive in a way that you don't really understand or don't really like, just like, hey, you know what? I don't like it when you talk to me like that. I don't like it when you do this. Just make sure we're very clear instead of having that toxic conversation, just have a more realistic conversation to where it's communicating so that you can come to an agreement at the end of that conversation. And sometimes it's just okay. It's okay to disagree. Just agree to disagree because sometimes you're not going to always see eye to eye. But ultimately, you have to just keep the one person or the people in mind in any situation, and that's the children whenever you're co-parenting.
Make it, yeah, making the choice to just be
Hmm.
respectful, not use negatives or expletives in that process will actually even take you a long way, believe it or not. It'll take you a long way. Not, not, and there, and just because you're quiet doesn't mean you're using wisdom necessarily, right? If you're being quiet in a moment where something might need to be verbalized, but you're just trying to like hold back, that's understandable too, so that you don't burst. Like he said, you don't want to turn out like an erupting volcano. But and just be conscious of moments where this person really might need a word from you, some information
Hmm.
from you, you know, and also understand there's a time to text and then there's a time you have to verbally speak with somebody. So you have to draw the line at some of these texts when you're not understanding what tone she's talking in. And a way that you know to draw the line at texting for that moment is to say, okay, I'm starting to like feel a rise in my chest. I'm starting to want to tighten my jawline a little bit because I don't know what her tone is here. Or like I'm thinking that she's saying it like this because I know her voice. Stop. You know what I mean? And then just you might need to hit her up on the phone and say, hey, I just didn't want to misunderstand your text because I didn't want to misread your tone. Little things like that help to draw the line between crossing over into crazy or not. It'll help prevent some stuff, believe it or not, in some cases.
Well, look, you know, you have to think about, I say this to people often. The way you read a text message or the way you read an email is the way that you would write it. It doesn't necessarily mean that that was the way the information was meant to be conveyed. So just because
That
you
as
would say
well, yes.
something in an assertive manner, or you would say something in a hostile tone, doesn't mean that's the way that the person wrote it. So the best thing to do is pick up the
Yes.
phone and communicate. We don't always do that. So what I've learned to start doing is if I want to make sure that I'm very clear or I think that it's going awry, I'll just do like one of those little voice messages. So that way the person can hear my tone
Yep.
and they can see that it's
Yep.
not angry and that, it's nice and soft and I'm talking to you and I'm trying to get an understanding. Um, so I think that kind of helps the situation. So in those moments to where if you're reading it and you think that, okay, why is this person saying this to me? And I'm going to respond. No, that may not be the way that it was meant for you to receive that message. So think about that.
Yes.
And then it also has to do with
Yes.
being empathetic to the other person's situation. So you got to make sure, that we display some type of empathy when dealing with the other parent.
Keisha, I got a question. There are a lot of men that just walk away. Do you think there was a time, other than his life being in danger, or possibly endangering the child's life from him being there out of a crazy girl emotion, something like that? Maybe she's got a condition. I don't know. Do you think a man should ever just totally walk away from a situation? Do you think that it's okay that he walk away?
You asking me when I've walked away myself? I think if you're unhappy, yes, 100% walk away. I don't think you should ever stay in a situation where you're not happy. I
I'm
don't.
talking
I'm not
about
one of
in
those
raising his
people.
kids,
I understand
walking
that. I
away
know
from the
exactly what you're talking
kids.
about.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was going
Okay.
to say. I don't think people should stay in a relationship that they're unhappy in just for the kids because guess what? The children are going to see
Right.
that you're unhappy and it's going to affect them.
Right.
So no, if you're unhappy, don't stay. Figure out a way to try to make it work. But if you think you've gotten to that point of no return to where you know what, nah, I don't. This situation is not for me. Because for one, ultimately, we don't know how many days we have left on this earth, and I think I said this before,
Hmm.
but like, me turning 50, this is probably one of the first birthdays that I've had to where I felt like there was a mindset change. I got more days behind me than I have in front of me. So why would I stay with somebody that I'm unhappy with? My children got their whole lives ahead of them. I don't even know if, I got friends that I've lost that were in their 40s or in their early 50s. So I'm not going to stay somewhere where I'm
Hmm.
unhappy. And I would never recommend anybody stay somewhere they're unhappy just for somebody else's happiness. That's not fair to you. And it's honestly, it's not fair to the other person because if you stay
Hmm.
with that person and you're not happy to make them happy, you know what that's going to cause? It's going to cause resentment.
A lot of it, girl. Mm.
Yes. Yes. And
But
you're going to
but
resent them
Keisha,
because you're not getting what you need out of that relationship.
yes, but they're already broken up. The woman is being totally just not cooperating, turning the child against them. I don't want you seeing the child. And he just says, forget it. I'll move on and act like I did not even have this child. I did not have this woman. This is the old life. And now I'm just totally moving on. And I'll get with somebody else, have a new family, and ignoring that child.
Well,
Like,
no, that's
because the
not. I don't
mother
think
was
that's
just
okay.
so,
Yeah, I don't think that's a good
because
idea. And
that's,
I think eventually in those situations, the child will actually start asking the mother certain things about their father, because there's
mm,
going to come a time where things are going to come up to where whether it's at school to where you have a father daughter dance or whether it's like a baseball
yeah,
game or like you know what I mean, to where the father needs to be involved, and now
hmm,
you're the one
yeah.
who's looking crazy because you've kept this man away from his child and he
Right,
did not
right,
deserve that. So yeah, I don't
right.
think that a person should stay in a situation where they're unhappy. And sometimes
Hmm.
because for your emotional sanity, you may have to detach because you don't want to keep being putting yourself in this toxic environment, even though it's hurting you to be away from your child. But there are legal recourses that you can take as well. And if you have to go get a lawyer, whatever the case may be, to go in to get visitation rights, like, of course, with that, even if you go, depending on whether you're in a situation with child support, that may be the flip side. I've had known friends who put themselves on child support just so they can get those visitation rights. So, there are ways around that to where
Mhm.
you may have a controlling mother to where you're trying to control everything. You're trying to control when this person can talk to their child, how much money
Yeah.
they need to give you to see their child. It's like you're treating your child like they're a commodity or they're like, they're, like I keep using the word pawn, but they're like an article as opposed to a person. And this is actually a human being with thoughts and feelings that has not only you inside of them, but has that father inside of them too. And it's just as much the father's child as it is the mother's child.
I have to just bring this up. You said something that made me think of this. It's very easy to be frustrated with the other person, right? And one of the
Hmm.
things that can constantly deflect, deflect, deflect from you guys being able to co-parent successfully is body language.
Mm.
Body language, rolling of the eyes, smacking of the lips through the phone, laughing at the other person, slick little jabs, because it's very easy. We're human. You know what I mean? And it's just these slick little jabs that she might throw your way or you might throw her way, but that could literally set you back. It could continue to set you back if you have been trying to work towards a successful co-parenting relationship. I just want to throw that out there. You draw the
Mm.
line at the crazy girl by checking the body language. Check your body language because this right here, that right there, the
All
or
right, I'm gonna have
this
to
one,
ask now.
yeah, this go ahead. Look, tales from the trenches. Look
No,
here.
I'm gonna say, let's go
No,
ahead and tell some
I went the first
stories.
time. You go. No, you go this time. You go first this
Oh,
time. You go first this time.
oh
Tales from
no,
the
no, no,
trenches.
no, no. You were already on the rolls. That's why I said, well, let me go ahead and change the string because it seemed like you was in a moment where you was talking about somebody rolling them eyes and just
Yes, because I would roll my eyes. I would already have the expectation that he's gonna cut me off. He's gonna da 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 da. He's gonna da 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 da. Right, and so I'm just like going into it like he and how's he going into it? We just all, you know what I mean. So you have to. It's and then next thing you know, no, I'm trying to tell you. No, I'm trying to tell you. No, like me and you, we were talking the other day, and we were both trying to get that. You were like, no, I need you to let me talk.
yeah,
And that's the thing. I have, I will try to overtalk somebody. And
hmm
so I had to watch that. And it doesn't mean that you still are not guilty of doing that, but you make the conscious effort. And you could say, you know what, I want to make a more conscious effort to not talk over you, but you make it real hard sometimes because I don't know when I can get in a word. I want to hear what you're saying. You know what I mean? Like little things like that. But
yeah.
believe it or not, something that helped us was actually verbalizing. I want to hear what you're saying. I do. Let me stop. I'm sorry. That goes
But that has
such a
to come
long
from both
way.
sides, though. But that has to come from both sides. And then
And it did.
also,
And I'm going to tell
what you
you,
have
it
to
did.
do
It
is
did
to,
eventually.
but what you have to do also on both sides is to not make assumptions about what you think that person is going to say. Because sometimes,
Exactly.
because you automatically assume you know what their response is going to be, you have no idea what's inside
Exactly.
somebody else's head. So instead of assuming, you have
Yes.
to just stop and allow yourself an opportunity, like you said, to just actively listen as opposed to just waiting for your turn to speak.
Even if you're right and they do respond like that, what you do is you begin my brother taught me this actually. You begin to do the healthy thing, and just possibly if you do it enough, that other person will pick it up. Something my brother would do when I talk over him, he would just say, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. And it made me conscious that I was talking over him. So
Mm.
now when we talk, I'm over talking him. I say, "Oh wait, I'm sorry, you were talking." And then he's like, "Thank you," and he goes on ahead and he'll finish his thought. It helps, but it took him saying, "Well, you do over talk, Essence. I do, but I do want to hear what you have to say." So it just made me respect him so much more, and he led me in the conversation and taught me how to talk to him.
But you have to think about what your over talking is saying to the other person. What your over talking is saying
Yeah,
to the other person is basically saying
I'm not
that, and
listening.
this is
I don't care.
no, it's not. No, let me finish. What it's saying is that, let me
That's what
finish.
I'm
Let me
talking
over
about.
talking me. So what I'm
That's the
saying, but
point.
yeah, because right now you're assuming what I'm saying. So what I'm trying to say is that what the other person, what you're conveying is that I know what I'm talking about right now, and I kind of know more than you at this moment. So I'm going to say what I got to say, and then I'll let you talk after I finish my complete thought that may be 5 minutes long. And the other person, so they're in that in this mindset of like, well, I mean, I kind of want to respond to what you're saying. You're not giving me an opportunity to respond. And then you're taking 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 4 points. By the time you get to point five, I really forgot what point one was. So what I try to do myself personally, because I've been accused of this as well, is that I try to at least have a point and then say, do you want to comment on that? Or what do you think about that before I go into my next topic? And that's why I try to be active in writing down things when I talk to people. I want to just, if I have a thought, and I read this in a book, but I try to write down what I want to say so that I don't interrupt
Yep.
that person.
Yes. And you might be typing, like texting yourself what you want to say to her. You might be putting it in your notes. She might think that I'm being silly now. She might, why are you on your phone and I'm talking to you? I'm just trying to keep note of what I want to say to you. No, I'm just
Nah, I don't know
kidding.
about that one.
Don't let her see you
Um,
doing that. I was being funny.
no,
But
but
no, but that was my exact point.
yeah.
That was my exact point of the talking over.
But I was just thinking about, I'm just looking at this topic right here, our crazy co-parent chronicles, right? And I got
Yes.
tales from the trenches of parenthood. So just one thing, I think it made me think about was with my ex, and I ain't gonna say which one, but he'll know when he hears the story. But he had gotten married and had gotten into an issue with his wife and decided to come over and talk to me. And I'm like, okay, it was about like 9 o'clock at night. So we're sitting there talking. I'm like, have you called your wife? He was like, 9. I said, well, I'm about to call her and let her know that you're here. Why you gonna not? Because I just want to let her know that you're okay because she's probably worried. So she was talking about, oh, well, why is he there? You guys got a history, you guys. And I'm like, girl, let me tell you something. If he here, trust me, he is safe. You ain't got to worry about nothing happening with him over here. The other woman, I can't vouch for him, but if he over here, trust me, he's good. So I'm gonna let you know when he
Yeah.
calm down. I'm gonna send him back home. But for right now, I'm just letting you know where he is and he's safe. Have a good night.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but
That
that
he
type
ain't
of
out there wilding
relationship.
and doing something.
Correct, correct. He could have been at somebody else's house that wanted him. I just wasn't one of them women that wanted him at the time, right? I'd already been
Right.
there. But
Right.
but the
Right.
fact is that because we had a relationship that ended, we were there for our children. It grew into a mature friendship that he knew that I was someone that he can come and talk to at any given moment about a situation, and I would give him a healthy response or a healthy answer, and I would meet him with anything that was going to cause trouble in his current relationship.
Yes. Straight wisdom. And one thing that I would add to this whole situation of co-parenting with crazy, do not sleep with that woman.
Well, that's the whole point.
Don't lay
Why would
back
you?
down with her.
That's why that was my whole thing. I'm like, he's safe here because I don't have no interest in that. But that's just my personality trait to where once it's over for me, it's over. I don't backtrack like that. I'm good. Once I
Exactly.
mentally say that's
Yeah, I know
it,
you don't.
we're done. Yeah, it's done. And a lot of people, that's what causes a lot of the crazy and a lot of the friction and a lot of the toxicity in relationships because you keep sleeping with the person, knowing the relationship is not going to work, expecting a different result.
Remember? Yes. Remember when we were just talking about, well, here's the thing. The chaos keeping the peace, the inner peace. This is one of the ways you keep the inner peace
Hmm.
because there are a lot of men. I'm not going to say a lot, but you have these men, you have some men who love chaos. They because it drives them sexually. They want the chaos. So they don't mind they don't like being able to see their kids. They might not like the chaos of the co-parenting, right? But we're gonna argue. Okay, I still have dibs on that. I still hit that, right?
Well, I
The
think,
crazy ones be they had the best, right? But here's the thing: they say
girl,
the
let me
crazy
tell you
ones
this.
had the best. You gotta control that.
Let me tell you this. I hate to say this, but men, yeah, they think that about every woman they've been with. What you said about, oh, wow,
But
that's mine, go back and hit that.
yeah,
It ain't always true, but that's what they think. So it's
right. But
like
that's what they think.
in their mind, it's like, especially when they have a child with somebody, it's like they don't want you moving on with anybody. They can move on and do whatever, but they don't want you moving on being with anybody else. But ultimately, you
Right,
have to get
right.
past that point. So, man, you got to think about that mindset because sometimes you're contributing to the crazy when you continue to sleep with that woman and continue to be with her, knowing good well you don't want to be with her, knowing you've moved on, but yet you're just trying to see if you can get back in, how if that door is locked or if it's cracked or if it's sealed shut, and all that's doing is
Mhm.
just continuing the crazy. So if you want to get rid of that crazy and make sure that you turn that crazy into something that's more enlightening, into a co-parenting situation to where you can have healthy relationships, a healthy relationship with the other parent. Stop sleeping with them. You already know that. That ain't man. All right, so I'm gonna move into. I'm gonna let you off the hook with that story because I know we're getting short on time. We're gonna move into this next one where we talk about just from drama to dharma, right? And how do we foster that positive relationship? How do we make sure that we have that, that situation that's ideal for the child, to where both parents are happy when they're around their children?
Fostering positive relationships means fostering first a good relationship with yourself.
Mm,
It's bringing
yes.
everything together that we have discussed, especially when Keisha really tapped on just really focusing on how you can get stress off of yourself, making sure you're
Mm-hmm.
taking time for yourself, looking out for you. You can't really look out for somebody who's not right in front of you as much. That can stress you out. What's going on with my child? Who's that man that's around my child? Who are the people she got around my kids? Those things, you can't worry about that. You have to dedicate yourself to saying, I want this to be positive. I choose to have a positive outlook, because you first, it starts in the mindset. I have a positive outlook. I started
Mm-hmm.
speaking that over my relationship with my ex-husband. I was saying, you know what? I think he's a great guy. So great that I
Yeah.
had children with him. And you could say that about the woman. You know what? She was so wonderful, or she was so fine, even if it was just like a one hit wonder. Like, she was so fine that I felt good enough to lay down with her. Anything, you find the positive. And she is smart. She's real intelligent in this area. She's so fun, or I like that about her. That's a good character trait about her. I like that around. Things like that begin to actually speak the frequency into the existence of building a positive, solid co-parenting relationship. Believe it or not, again, most of the fostering occurs before you even are in contact with that child and in contact with that other parent. It literally starts with the mindset.
I agree 100%. You know, I think that if you focus on the well being of the children and you make sure that they are the person that you have in mind when you're talking to the other parent or when you're dealing with them, that will always, I think that's one way to foster a positive relationship is just where your focus. Your focus should be on who they're dating, who they're sleeping with, who they're going out with. Um, of course, ultimately, if it's somebody that they're serious with, you may need to find a positive way to have that conversation about meeting that person that is around your child. Now, I know I dated this guy who had a little girl. She was 3. And, he brought her to my home several times. And I said, okay, does her mother know that she's here? And he was like, well, no. I said, well, I need you to tell her mother that you're bringing her to my house. Well, she doesn't care. Well, I'm gonna tell you this as a mother, I'm sure she does. So I was very adamant about it, and I said, I'm just gonna. I had to set boundaries, but like, I don't want you bringing your daughter over here anymore unless her mother knows that she's here. And I said, and actually, I would like to meet her mother because we were getting serious. And if it's serious enough for you to bring your child around me, yeah, I definitely want to make sure that the other parent knows about it because there was just, I just thought about myself, and that's me being empathetic to the other parent of the person that I'm dating. So, and you got some people out here who will just try to do things for whatever, like a sick mindset, right? To where they're like thinking, okay, well, I'm getting over on this woman, or I'm doing this, and your child calls me mama. It's like, what? Really? Why would you even say that to another parent? But you have some people who are out here just to keep that toxic environment going. So the best thing to always do is to put yourself in that situation and ask yourself, how would you respond if you were on the other side of it? And all I can think about is what if, my children's father was taking my child around another woman and I didn't know this person? How would I feel? So I definitely wanted to make sure that I included that other parent in the conversation, even invited her over to my home and just say, this is the environment that your child is going to be in. And if I'm going to be serious with this man, I want to make sure that you know where your child is. So she and I, I'm not gonna say we were
That's
friends, but
very
we had an
powerful.
understanding. We had an understanding.
That's very powerful. When it comes to you, especially when you said, like, to invite her over, this is the
Hmm.
environment that your child will be in, because there are other children, there might be other people living in the house,
Hmm.
there might be friends, neighbors that come by. And let's just be honest, we want to make sure that our children are well protected. So those are things we would want to know about.
Absolutely. And what that does is that helps to promote that positive environment for the person that you're dating and also your ex and for your child. So that's, to me, I think that's always, honesty is always the best recourse. And don't try to hide stuff. Make sure that you're just open and honest and just provide that pipeline for communication. All right. So you talked about something earlier. We talked about, just legal, going to the courts and different things like that. Sometimes you can do all this stuff that we mentioned and parents still won't be cooperative. They're still not going to let you see your child. They're still not going to, want that positive environment. You may not understand what's going on. If that's the situation, then yes, sometimes you may want to have to go seek legal counsel or get some advice from someone else to where you can put yourself in a better situation. Now, I'm not a lawyer or anything like that, but um, if that is what you're dealing with, by all means, I would say 100%. Go get you a lawyer so you can have those visitation rights. And just know that on the flip side of it, you're probably going to have to pay child support, no matter what the case may
Yep.
be. And we already know that sometimes if it's not already documented, they're going to say everything that you've done up to that point is just a gift. So you got to think about the positive and the negatives that come with that whenever you include legal in your situations or whenever something like that.
Yes, that is on point. Get receipts for everything.
Hmm.
And like she said, we cannot give legal advice, but that's just in the culture. Have your receipts. Have
You
your
know what I
receipts.
mean?
And you know what I mean? That is just that's the cultural language right now. But on top of that, practical consideration could be maybe the mother is not communicating with you or anything like that, so that you can't communicate with the child. But maybe you all have a mutual friend and you just send messages to your mutual friend. If you know that you're a good father, you know you're trying to be a good father, you mean no, there's no harm to that child or anything like that. Again, check your legal matters because
Yeah.
you got to know what's going on legally. But again, write though, and the reason why I said write the letters, I love Keisha's idea of just contacting them on social media, right?
Yeah.
Social media changes. The parents might check, of course, hopefully the parents are checking the social media, right? But at the same time, when you have letters and you have copies, again, these things are in writing, and it's just something, even if you type it up, doesn't have to be in your handwriting or anything like that. You might write like crap. But
Yeah.
these things are records for your child to go back and say, my father really did care. He
Yeah.
did care. He thought
Absolutely.
about me every year of my life, every other month, every month, whatever. It's powerful. It's
I
powerful.
agree. I agree. Well, I think we had some great discussions today. I think this was a great topic, and if you guys have some ideas on something that you want us to talk about, just put it in the comments and let us know so we can kind of give you some ideas on how to crack that crazy girl code on whatever situation you're dealing with. And that is it for a show. So we're going to wrap it up. And you guys, hey, just keep coming back and we'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace out.